As pop singer David sits in jail charged with the murder of Celeste Rivas Hernandez, the LA County Medical Examiner is releasing the official report on her death.
And Marco Robles joins us now live at the studio tonight with new reaction from the girl's family. Mark?
Yeah, David and Giovanna, the details are deeply disturbing. This medical examiner's report, unsealed by the court, confirms 14-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez was stabbed to death.
Where she died in the back of my mind. I didn't kill her physically, but in the back of my mind, she died. And I didn't even cry, not a single tear. So it's not like the thought of her is gone by itself was something that she did. It was something that I decided to do. And I killed her in the back of my mind.
And he would commit the crimes that I would have to solve as the detective. I'd be like solving murders that I'm committing myself.
There's a moment in every true crime case where the timeline stops making sense, where the pieces are all visible, but the full picture is almost too painful to look at. The case of Celeste Rivas Hernandez is one of those cases, and right now, as of this week, it has reached a breaking point that the entire country is watching. A young girl from a quiet town in Southern California, a rising music star with millions of streams and a devoted Gen Z following, a Tesla sitting abandoned on a Hollywood Hills street for months, and a secret that, according to prosecutors, someone was willing to go to unthinkable lengths to keep buried. This is what we know. This is what has just been confirmed. And this is why this case matters far beyond the headlines. Celeste Abigail Rivas Hernandez grew up in Lake Elsinore, California, a modest, tight-knit community about 80 miles outside of Hollywood. Her parents, Jesus Rivas and Mercedes Martinez, immigrated from El Salvador and built a life there for their family. By all accounts, Celeste was a normal kid. She loved to sing. She loved to dance. Every Friday was movie night in the Rivas household. And according to her parents' first public statement released just this week, she always told them she loved them. She had braces. She had friends at school. She had a whole future ahead of her that she never got to live. She also had, at some point, met someone on the internet who would change everything. David Anthony Burke, known to the world as d4vd, was not a household name when he first crossed paths with Celeste. He was a bedroom producer from Houston, Texas, who went viral on TikTok in 2022 with a song called Romantic Homicide. The irony of that title has not been lost on anyone following this case. Within months, he had a record deal with Darkroom and Interscope Records, a devoted fan base, and a carefully crafted public image built on vulnerability, heartbreak, and lo-fi aesthetic. He was the kind of artist Gen Z trusted because he felt real. He felt accessible. He felt like someone who understood them. Behind that image, prosecutors now allege something far darker was taking place. According to evidence that has surfaced since Celeste was reported missing, she had been connected to Burke's online world for years, appearing in his official Discord server as early as 2022, where other users reportedly refer to her as his girlfriend. A former science teacher at Celeste Middle School in Lake Elsinore came forward after her identity was confirmed and shared something that stopped many people in their tracks. He said that while Celeste was in his class, she met someone on social media, a rapper in LA, and that person came and picked her up. She ran away from home. Authorities eventually located her in Hollywood and returned her to school. Then months later, she was gone again. That was the last time he saw her. What followed was a series of disappearances that Celeste's family reported to authorities multiple times. Each time, she was classified as a runaway. Each time, the trail led back toward Los Angeles. Surveillance footage and digital evidence would later confirm she was still alive well into early 2025. Photos placed her backstage at one of Burke's shows. Photos placed him near her neighborhood. And then there were the matching tattoos, the same ink on the same finger on both of their hands. Her mother confirmed that Celeste had a boyfriend named David. Her brother told reporters she disappeared after being picked up in a car. The connection was undeniable. But what happened next is what turned this case into one of the most disturbing stories in the country. On September 8, 2025, a worker at a Los Angeles vehicle impound lot noticed something wrong. A Tesla that had been towed from a street in the Hollywood Hills was giving off a smell that no one could ignore. When authorities responded and opened the front trunk of that vehicle, What they found would set off a 7-month investigation that gripped the nation and ultimately led to one of the most significant arrests in recent music industry history. The remains inside that trunk belonged to Celeste Rivas Hernandez. She was found a day after what would have been her 15th birthday. The Tesla was registered to David Anthony Burke, and Burke, at that exact moment, was in Minneapolis on a world tour promoting his debut album titled Withered. The car had not been freshly abandoned. Investigators would later confirm it had been sitting on Bluebird Avenue since late July 2025, right around the time Burke's tour began. Neighbors had seen it parked there for weeks. Nobody had looked inside. And for months after the discovery, the full truth of what had happened inside that vehicle was shielded from the public, while one of the most secretive investigations in Los Angeles history quietly moved forward. In the days that followed, LAPD executed a search warrant at the Hollywood Hills property where Burke had been living. Investigators seized electronic devices, including a computer, and according to a private investigator hired by the property owner, something else was found on the premises, a burn cage incinerator. Burke's management terminated the lease on the property shortly after the search. He moved out. The cause of death at that stage was listed as deferred. Authorities were careful with their language. They refused to name a suspect publicly. They refused to confirm the manner of death. And for weeks, that silence was deafening, particularly to Celeste's family and to the millions of people online who had already connected the dots and were demanding answers. Then, in November 2025, the LAPD broke their silence, at least partially. For the first time, they publicly characterized the case as a murder investigation. Deputy Chief Alan Hamilton stood before cameras and said something that many have been waiting months to hear, that accountability was coming, that no one was off the table, and that detectives were actively pursuing justice for Celeste. The department also took the unusual step of directly addressing misinformation that had been spreading online, clarifying that certain graphic details being circulated about the condition of the remains were not accurate. That same month, the Los Angeles Times confirmed that an investigative grand jury had been quietly convened. This is a process most people never see, a secret proceeding where ordinary citizens hear evidence behind closed doors and determine whether charges should be recommended. Record label executives were called in. Witnesses were questioned. And in February 2026, the veil was partially lifted when court documents filed in Texas revealed that Burke's own parents and younger brother had been subpoenaed to testify before that grand jury and had filed petitions trying to avoid doing so. Those documents contained a statement from prosecutors that Burke may be involved in foul play connected to Celeste's death. At that point, the question was no longer if charges were coming. It was when, on April 16, 2026, the LAPD arrested David Anthony Burke at a residence on Marmont Avenue in the Hollywood Hills. Less than 2 miles from where Celeste's remains had been found inside his car, he was taken into custody without bail. For days later, Los Angeles County District Attorney Nathan Hochman stood before cameras and announced the formal charges. First-degree muasterister with special circumstances, continuous unlawful contact with minor, and mutilation of human remains. Hochman did not mince words. He called it a parent's worst nightmare. He said that Burke had engaged in an ongoing unlawful relationship with Celeste beginning when she was just a child, and that when she threatened to expose what had been done to her and what that exposure would do to his career, Burke allegedly made a decision that no amount of fame or music could ever justify. He allegedly took her life, cut up her remains, and stuffed them into bags inside the trunk of his own car. The autopsy report released on April 22, 2026, just yesterday, answered questions that had been sealed away from the public for months. And what it revealed was as heartbreaking as it was disturbing. Celeste Rivas Hernandez died for what the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner described as multiple penetrating injuries. 2 wounds to her chest and abdomen, including damage to her liver. A forensic pathologist who reviewed the public report told CNN the injuries were most consistent with a sharp instrument, likely a knife, and that the dismemberment of her remains appeared to have occurred after her passing. Her arms and her legs had been separated from her body. 2 fingers had been removed from her left hand. Multiple blue plastic fragments were found embedded in the remains and submitted into evidence. The body had been placed into a zippered bag before being concealed in the trunk of that Tesla. She still had her braces on. That detail alone stopped people cold when the report became public, because it is the detail that cuts through all the legal language in the charges and the press conferences and reminds you exactly who Celeste Rivas Hernandez was. She was a child from a working-class neighborhood in Lake Elsinore who should have been worrying about school and friends and what she wanted to do with her life. Instead, her family is now processing an autopsy report through their attorneys and asking the world for privacy as they grieve what was done to their daughter. Their statement, released this week, was simple and devastating. They called her beautiful and strong. They said she loved to sing and dance. They said all they want is justice for Celeste. Now, let's talk about the why, because that may be the most important part of this story. Prosecutors have laid out what they believe drove David Burke to allegedly commit this act, and they have attached 3 special circumstances to the murder charge that paint a very specific picture of motive. The first is lying in wait, meaning this was not a spontaneous moment of rage, but something prosecutors believe involved deliberate planning and positioning. The second is financial gain, meaning Burke allegedly stood to lose a career worth millions if Celeste followed through on what she was threatening to do. And the third, perhaps the most chilling, is a mu asterisk of a witness, meaning Celeste herself was not just a victim. She was evidence. She was a living, breathing proof of everything Burke allegedly did. Think about what that means. Every day Celeste was alive, she represented a threat to everything Burke had built: the record deal, the tours, the streaming numbers, the brand. Prosecutors allege he had been in an unlawful relationship with her since she was barely a teenager, and she reportedly had the receipts, the matching tattoos, the photos, the digital trail, years of contact that could not be explained away. When she allegedly threatened to bring all of that into the light, Burke allegedly made a calculation, and according to the DA's office, that calculation ended her life. There is something else worth noting about this case that speaks to a much larger conversation. Celeste was reported missing multiple times. She was found and returned to her community. She was flagged as a runaway. And yet the circumstances that kept pulling her away from her family, the person at the center of those circumstances, was not investigated until a body was found in a car. That is a conversation this country needs to have about who gets taken seriously when they go missing, about what it takes for the system to act, about the young girls who fall through the cracks while someone with a platform and a publicist gets the benefit of the doubt. David Burke is currently being held without bail. He has pleaded not guilty to all charges. His attorneys maintain the evidence will prove his innocence and have pushed for the earliest possible preliminary hearing. Prosecutors say they have 40 terabytes of evidence ready to present. The death penalty remains on the table.
Counsel, on behalf of your client, do you waive formal reading of the complaint, advisement of rights, including armed forces and veterans' rights, enter a plea of not guilty, denying any and all special allegations, enhancements, and priors?
Yes, Your Honor.
And you're requesting a preliminary hearing within the period?
Yes, Your Honor. From the media reports, apparently there have been 4 months of secret grand jury proceedings. We believe that Mr. Burke is entitled at the earliest opportunity to an open preliminary hearing and the proceedings not be done in secret. So we are asking for a preliminary hearing to be set at the earliest possible date on the 10th day. Your Honor, we believe the actual evidence will show David Burke did not murder Celeste Rivas Hernandez, nor was he the cause of her death. And we would like to be able to have the evidence come into the light of day at the earliest opportunity in order to establish that. We're asking for April 23rd as a 3 of 10, Your Honor.
Anything from the people?
We'll be very happy to put on the evidence that we've collected in this case in the last several months.
Thank you. So the matter will be set. A plea of not guilty has been entered on behalf of Mr. Burke. The matter will be set in Department 105. The matter is ordered assigned to Judge Charlene Almedo in Department 105 for all purposes by the judge of the supervising judge of criminal.
Yes, Your Honor. If I may just put on the record, we have, as soon as the people arrive, delivered a informal discovery request consistent with Penal Code Section 1054. We have been given almost no discovery thus far. We've received a 3-page follow-up report, no autopsy report, and a copy of the complaint. And we would ask the people respectfully to produce discovery at the earliest opportunity.
Your Honor, as I indicated to counsel, there's approximately 40 terabytes of discovery in this case. Moreover, in order to obtain the transcripts from a grand jury investigation, counsel has to file a motion. She knows the way the system works. I'm not able to gather those. They have to be provided after the court orders them released because it was an investigation. Second of all, if counsel plans on going to a preliminary hearing within the 10 days, it is unlikely that there will be very much discovery provided within that period, given the voluminous nature and how long it's going to take to copy onto drives. In addition to that, the coroner's report was sealed in this case in order to prevent it from hampering truthful testimony from witnesses that testified at the grand jury. So an order will also have to be obtained in order to get the coroner's department, which is now the medical examiner's department, to release those materials.
Your Honor, it's surprising news given that the District Attorney's Office held a press conference this morning where they discussed the cause of death, apparently under seal and not released by the coroner's office, as did the robbery homicide unit to the press. So we would again reiterate, we believe that Mr. Burke is entitled to discovery. We have served the people with notice. They have 15 days to produce discovery in this case. We would ask that they do that in conscientious earnestness and as quickly as possible.
I'd ask the court to make an order today. We'll take a copy of the minute order ordering the Department of Medical Examiner to release their coroner's report in this case.
Thank you, Your Honor.
The court will order that the medical examiner release the report in this case forthwith.
Thank you.
The matter is set in Department 105, as the court indicated, April 23rd, 2026, as a 3 of 10 prelim. Anything further?
No, not this time.
Bail to stand at no bail. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Celeste Rivas Hernandez was found a day after her birthday. She still had her braces on, and her family says all they want is justice. We will be following every development in this case as it moves forward. If this story moved you, please share it. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And as always, we do this work because these stories deserve to be told, and these names deserve to be remembered. Rest in peace, Celeste.